The sleet hit harder the closer Franklin got to home. 9 months in Guam, building runways for Uncle Sam, and all he wanted was his own bed and a hot meal. The wipers on his truck struggled against the November cold. He pulled into the driveway and noticed the garage door was closed. Odd. Linda knew he liked to pull straight in. Strange Ram pickup sat where he usually parked, lifted, loud exhaust rumbling even at idle. The house lights were on. Smoke curled from the chimney. Should have felt like home. Franklin pushed through the front door, shaking sleet from his jacket. A man sat on his couch, 30-something, gym rat build, feet propped on Franklin's coffee table. Didn't even stand up. "You must be the husband," the man said. "Linda said you weren't due back till next week." Franklin looked past him. Linda stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. Her face had gone white, then hard. His father's photo on the mantel was turned face down. Franklin stood in his own living room and felt like a stranger. The man, Derek, Linda called him, still hadn't moved his feet. Beer in one hand, TV remote in the other, like he owned the place. "Linda," Franklin said. His voice came out steady. 26 years in the Navy taught you to keep your voice steady. "What's going on here?" "We need to talk." And she didn't move from the kitchen doorway. "Things have changed." Derek leaned back, hands behind his head. "Babe, you want me to handle this?" "Babe." The word hit Franklin like a fist. He looked around his house. New throw pillows on the couch, different pictures on the wall. Derek's jacket hanging on Franklin's coat hook by the door. The smell, cheap cologne, thick and cloying, making Franklin's stomach turn. "Where's the Chevy?" Franklin asked. The garage door had been closed. His father's '67 Impala should have been sitting right there, waiting. Linda's jaw tightened. "We'll talk in the morning. You need to leave for tonight." "Leave?" Franklin looked at her. 22 years of marriage. Her face used to soften when he came home. Now it was stone. "This is my house." There's a motel on Route 9, Linda said. She turned and walked into the kitchen. Derek raised his beer bottle in Franklin's direction. A little salute, mocking. Franklin's hands curled into fists at his sides. But he was 63 years old and too tired to throw a punch that would solve nothing. He looked at his father's photo, still face down. He turned and walked out. The motel clerk barely looked up when Franklin paid cash for the night, $28. The room smelled like cigarettes and pine sol. Franklin sat on the edge of the bed, still in his jacket, didn't turn on the TV. His phone sat silent in his hand. No calls, no texts from Linda. He pulled up his contacts. Amy's name stared back at him. His daughter. Hadn't talked to her in 6 years, not since that fight about her divorce. He pressed the call button. It rang 4 times, voicemail. He hung up without leaving a message. From his wallet, Franklin pulled out a photo. Him and his dad, both grinning, standing next to the Chevy the day they'd finished the restoration. His father's hand on the hood. Proud. That was 3 weeks before the cancer took him. "It's yours now, son," his father had said. "Keep it running." Franklin stared at the water-stained ceiling. Sleet tapped against the window. The heater rattled and coughed. He didn't sleep. Just watched the gray November light leak through the curtains until morning came. At 7 a.m., Franklin drove back to the house. Derek's truck was still there, but Derek wasn't visible. Linda sat on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. "Sit," she said. Franklin sat. She pushed one mug toward him. Black, 2 sugars. The way he'd always taken it. For a moment, maybe 6 seconds, Franklin let himself believe this could be fixed. "Derek's moving out today," Linda said. Her voice was calm, businesslike. "We can try counseling. I made mistakes." Franklin wrapped his hands around the warm mug. "How long? Does it matter?" "Yeah, it matters," Linda sighed. 3 months, maybe 4. "I was lonely, Franklin. You were gone. He was here." Franklin looked at the street. Gray sky, bare trees, everything cold. "We can fix this," Linda said. "If you want to." Franklin wanted to want to. 22 years. That had to count for something. Then Ray Hendricks came walking up the driveway. Ray lived next door. 68, widower, retired electrician, kept to himself mostly. He had a composition notebook in his hand and a manila envelope. "Morning, Frank," Ray said. He nodded to Linda. "Ma'am?" "Ray," Linda said. Her voice had cooled 10 degrees. Ray looked at Franklin. "I got something you need to see. Been documenting some things. Didn't sit right with me." He opened the notebook. Dated entries. Photos. Derek's truck pulling into the driveway back in August. Linda loading boxes into a U-Haul in September. A tow truck hauling away the Chevy. "Your car," Ray said quietly. "She sold it 5 weeks ago. $18,000. I got the receipt here. Photographed it when the buyer came to pick it up." The coffee mug went cold in Franklin's hands. Franklin looked at Linda. "My father's car." "You sold my father's car?" Linda stood up. "That car was joint property. You were gone. I had bills to pay. No apology, no shame, just cold fact. Ray's voice was gentle. There's more, Frank. Bank statements. Mail I saw getting redirected. I got it all written down. Linda walked to the door. This is between me and my husband, Ray. Stay out of it. She went inside. The door closed behind her. Franklin stared at the closed door, at his own front door. Ray put a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, son. What else? Franklin's voice came out hoarse. What else did she take? Franklin drove to First National Bank on Main Street. The building had been there since 1952. Red brick and white columns, the kind of place where everybody knew your name. The teller was Sarah Mills. She'd processed Franklin's deployment paperwork 9 months ago, shook his hand, thanked him for his service. Now she wouldn't meet his eyes. I need to see the statements on my joint account, Franklin said. Going back 6 months. Sarah's fingers moved across her keyboard. Her face changed. Mr. Mercer, let me get the manager. 5 minutes later, Franklin sat in Tom Bradley's office. Tom had gone to high school with Franklin's younger brother, used to play softball together in the church league. Frank, Tom said carefully, the account was closed 2 weeks ago. Franklin's chest tightened. Closed? Tom slid a printout across the desk. Withdrawal history. $47,000. Gone in increments over 6 weeks. $3,000 here, $5,000 there. Steady bleeding until the account ran dry. There's a new account, Tom said. Opened the same day. Linda Mercer, just her name. Franklin stared at the numbers. 22 years of saving, gone. The closure form, Tom said, sliding another page across. We should have caught this, Frank. I'm sorry. Franklin looked at the signature. His name, but wrong. The slant was off. The F, too careful. Linda had practiced, but not enough. She forged my signature. It appears so, yes. And the bank statements showed the car money, too. $18,000 deposited into Linda's solo account 3 days after the Chevy sold. Franklin's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the desk to make them stop. Mr. Mercer, Tom said quietly, you should file a police report. This is fraud. She's my wife. She was your wife. Tom leaned forward. Frank, I've known you 30 years. This isn't right. None of this is right. Franklin stood. The room tilted slightly. He steadied himself against the chair. Can I get copies of these? Already printed them for you. Tom handed him a manila folder. Frank, call the police. Franklin walked out into the November cold, sat in his truck in the bank parking lot, opened the folder, looked at the numbers again, hoping they'd changed. They hadn't. His phone was in his hand before he realized what he was doing. He dialed the VA office. The Veterans Affairs office sat in the county seat, 20 minutes east. Fluorescent lights and government-issue furniture. Janet Morales had been Franklin's caseworker for 8 years. She was 52, sharp-eyed, didn't miss much. Franklin, she said when he walked in, I was going to call you today. That stopped him. About what? She gestured to her desk. Sit, please. He sat. Janet pulled up her computer screen, turned it so Franklin could see. Your disability benefits. $2,800 a month, service connected. When did you change your address? I didn't. Oh, and someone did. 8 months ago, right after you deployed. She showed him the form. Address change routing, his monthly VA check to a P.O. box in the next county. Signature at the bottom, Franklin Mercer, forged, again. The handwriting looked off to me, Janet said. I flagged it this morning. Then I saw you were back stateside and figured I'd ask before I escalated. Franklin's voice came out flat. How much? 8 months at $2,800. That's $22,400 added to the bank account. Total theft, nearly $90,000. Janet was watching his face. Franklin, did you authorize this? No, ma'am. Did Linda have access to documents with your signature? We were married 22 years. She had access to everything. Janet nodded slowly, picked up her phone. I need to call my supervisor. This is federal benefit fraud? Franklin, forged signatures on VA documents? That's serious. Prison serious. Franklin stared at the form. Linda's handwriting on the envelope, his forged signature on the line. What happens now, he asked. We investigate. Federal agents get involved. If it's proven, she's looking at 3 to 5 years. I could send my wife to prison. Janet's voice gentled. She sent herself there when she forged federal documents. You're just deciding whether to tell the truth or protect her. Franklin stood. His legs felt like water. I'll need you to come back for a formal interview, Janet said. Probably next week. Can you do that? Yeah. Franklin, she stood too. I've been doing this 20 years. I've seen a lot of people try to steal veterans' benefits. Spouses mostly. It makes me sick every time. You served your country. You came home to this. Don't let her make you feel guilty for reporting it. Franklin nodded, didn't trust his voice. He made it to his truck before the shaking started. Sat there in the VA parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to turn the key. $90,000, his father's car. 22 years. A horn honked behind him. Someone waiting for his parking spot. Franklin started the truck and drove. He didn't mean to go to the storage unit, but Ray had mentioned it, and Franklin's hands turned the wheel on their own. Secure store self-storage. His name was still on the rental agreement. Unit 247. Linda was paying for it with his stolen money. The lock opened with his key. Franklin pulled up the rolling door. Everything. All of it. Cardboard boxes, labeled in Linda's handwriting. Garage stuff. Frank's junk. Donate? His father's tools. The socket wrenches they'd used to rebuild the Chevy's engine. The hand planes and wood chisels. The drill, worn smooth from decades of use. All packed away like garage sale overflow. Franklin opened another box. His Navy uniform, his medals. 2 Purple Hearts, a Navy Achievement Medal, his good conduct ribbons. All of it in a Tupperware container, shoved under Christmas decorations. 26 years of service. In Tupperware. He found the photo albums at the bottom of a box labeled Books, Wedding Pictures. Him in dress blues, Linda in white, both of them young and smiling like they'd figured out the secret to life. Thanksgiving dinners. His father's funeral. Linda's hand on Franklin's shoulder, comfort in her eyes. When had that woman disappeared? The wedding album was water damaged. Someone had stored it wrong, let moisture seep in. Their faces were blurred in half the photos. Franklin sat on the cold concrete floor of the storage unit, held his father's favorite hammer. The wooden handle was smooth, worn from years of work. His dad's hand had gripped this, and his grandfather's before that. Linda had labeled it, Donate? The smell of the place, cardboard and dust and motor oil, mixed with the smell of his father's workshop, oil and sawdust and Old Spice aftershave. Franklin closed his eyes, and for a moment he was 17 again, learning how to plane wood. His father's patient voice. Slow strokes, son. Let the tool do the work. His phone rang. Ray Hendricks. Frank, where are you? Storage unit. She packed everything, all of it. Come back to my place. You can't stay in that motel again. Ray, I got a spare room. Patricia's quilts are still on the bed, but it's clean. You come here, tonight. Franklin looked at his belongings, boxed up like a dead man's estate. Okay, he said. Okay. He loaded his father's tools into his truck. The medals, the photo albums, left the rest. Couldn't look at it anymore. When he drove past his house, Derek's truck was in the driveway, lights on. Them inside, living his life, spending his money. Franklin kept driving. Ray was on his porch, waiting, coffee in hand, even though it was nearly dark. You gonna be okay, son? Franklin carried a box of his father's tools up the steps, set them down, looked at Ray. Can I sleep on your couch tonight? I can't go back there. Ray shook his head. Not the couch, the spare room. Stay as long as you need. Franklin felt something crack in his chest. Not breaking, just opening. Thank you. Don't mention it. That's what neighbors are for. Inside, the spare room smelled like mothballs and Old Spice. Patricia's quilts, like Ray said. Hand-stitched, soft. Franklin sat on the edge of the bed, his whole life in a neighbor's spare room. He was 63 years old and homeless in his own town. Outside, through the window he could see his house. The lights, Derek's truck, his house, his life, taken. Franklin lay back on the Patricia's quilts and stared at the ceiling. Didn't sleep, just waited for morning. Morning came gray and cold. Franklin woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Ray moving around in the kitchen. He'd slept maybe 2 hours. Patricia's quilts were soft, but the bed wasn't his. Nothing was his anymore. Ray was at the stove when Franklin came out. Scrambling eggs, toast in the toaster. 2 plates set out like this was normal. Like having your 63-year-old neighbor move in was just another Tuesday. Sit, Ray said. Coffee's hot. They ate in silence for a while. Ray didn't push. Franklin appreciated that. My daughter did something similar, Ray said finally. Emily, her husband worked oil rigs. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Good money, hard work. He stared at his coffee. She met someone while he was away, cleaned out their accounts, tried to take the kids. Franklin looked up. I didn't know. 4 years ago, I sided with my son-in-law, testified in court about what I'd seen. Emily hasn't spoken to me since. Ray's voice was quiet. Still got pictures of my grandkids from Tom, that's her ex, but I don't get to see them much. She made sure of that. I'm sorry. Don't be. I did what was right. Sometimes doing right costs you. Ray met Franklin's eyes. That's why I started watching when Derek showed up. When I heard Linda tell the mailman to hold your VA mail, I knew. I've seen this before. Franklin wrapped his hands around the coffee mug, warmth against his palms. I got a lawyer I know, Ray said. Tom Kowalski handled my daughter's divorce. He's good, fair. First consultation's free. I can't afford a lawyer. Can you afford not to have one? Kowalski's office was downtown. Second floor, glass and chrome. Made Franklin uncomfortable. Too clean, too modern. He missed wood and simplicity. Thomas Kowalski was maybe 50, gray at the temples, reading glasses on a chain. He spread Ray's notebook and the bank statements across his desk. This is strong evidence, Kowalski said. Forgery, fraud, federal benefit theft. She's in serious legal trouble. What's it cost to fight her? Franklin asked. Retainer is $5,000. Could go to 20 if she contests everything. Kowalski leaned back. Your financial situation? $1,850 a month retirement. Savings are gone. Can't afford $5,000, let alone 20. Kowalski was quiet for a moment. Mr. Mercer, you have another option. Press criminal charges? Bank fraud, federal benefit fraud, forgery. The threat of prosecution might pressure her to settle the divorce quickly. Prison? If convicted, yes. Federal fraud carries 3 to 5 years. Franklin stared at the papers on the desk, his forged signature, over and over. I need to think about it, he said. You have time. But you should know, Linda filed for divorce 2 days ago. She's claiming abandonment and financial irresponsibility. The air went out of Franklin's lungs. What? Kowalski slid another paper across the desk. Her lawyer is painting you as an absent husband who neglected his wife. She's asking for spousal support and half your military pension. Ray, sitting beside Franklin, muttered something under his breath. She wants more. Franklin's voice came out strangled. After everything she took? She's trying to grab what she can before the fraud investigation closes in. Kowalski folded his hands. Think about what you want, Mr. Mercer. Justice or peace. Sometimes you can't have both. Franklin needed lumber screws to fix Ray's fence. Least he could do, staying in the man's house. Miller's Hardware was on Main Street. Franklin had been shopping there for 30 years, knew every aisle. The clerk was Danny Walsh, known him since Danny was in high school. Hey, Frank. Danny's voice was careful. Awkward. Heard you're, staying with Ray. That's good. Good you got a place. 2 women by the paint section glanced over, whispered. Franklin found his screws, grabbed a package. At the register, Jim Torres walked up. Former Navy buddy, served together back in the 90s. Frank. Jim shifted his weight. Sorry about, things getting complicated at home. Complicated. Like it was a scheduling conflict. Like his wife hadn't robbed him blind. You coming to the VFW Friday? Jim asked. Cal Turner was asking about you. Maybe. You should. Good to see the guys. Franklin paid cash. Walked out. On the way to his truck, he passed the front window of Mabel's diner. Looked in out of habit. Linda and Derek sat in a booth, laughing. Derek's arm around her shoulder, her leaning into him. Playing happy couple. They had coffee, pancakes, living like normal people. Linda looked up, saw Franklin through the glass. Her face hardened. She said something to Derek. Derek looked out, raised his coffee mug. A little salute, mocking, same as that first night. Franklin's hands curled into fists. Every eye on Main Street felt like it was watching him, pitying him. The old vet whose wife left him, the fool who didn't see it coming. Franklin got in his truck, started the engine, sat there, hands on the wheel, watching them through the diner window. Derek's arm around Linda, her laughing at something he said. In Franklin's house, with Franklin's money. While Franklin lived in a neighbor's spare room, he drove back to Ray's, didn't say anything, just went to the spare room and closed the door, sat on the edge of Patricia's quilt and stared at nothing. I gave her 22 years, he thought, and she sold my father's car like it was scrap metal. Outside, the November sky was the color of old iron, cold, gray, unforgiving. 6 weeks passed like cold molasses. January settled in hard, the kind of cold that got into your bones and stayed there. Franklin's routine became simple. Wake in Ray's spare room, coffee on the porch even when his breath fogged. Look for work that wasn't there, avoid town, the legal battleground on. Filings, counterfilings, depositions scheduled, words on paper that cost money Franklin didn't have. Ray found him on the porch one morning at 6 a.m., frozen there, coffee gone cold in his hand, staring at nothing. You okay, son? Franklin didn't answer right away. The creek behind the houses was solid ice. Everything gray. He'd forgotten what color looked like. I'm 63, Ray. Maybe I should just let her have it, start over somewhere else. Where would you go? Anywhere. Nobody knows this shame. Ray sat down beside him. The porch boards creaked under his weight. Running don't stop shame, just spreads it thinner. They sat in silence, breath visible in the January air. VFW meeting tonight, Ray said. Come with me, just once. Franklin started to say no, but there was nowhere else to be, nothing else to do, so he nodded. The VFW hall smelled like coffee and old wood, wood-paneled walls covered with faded photos. Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, men who'd been young once. The coffee urn was always on, had been since 1907. 12 men showed up, various ages, all veterans. Cal Turner saw Franklin and stood, 74 years old, Vietnam, 2 Purple Hearts, straight back despite his age. Franklin Mercer, Cal said, heard you were back. Also heard you're going through some rough water. Franklin nodded, didn't trust his voice. You're in the right place, son. We've all been there. They went around the room, not formally, just stories that surfaced natural. Jimmy Reeves, wife emptied their accounts during his Iraq deployment, came home to nothing. Pete Morrison, girlfriend sold his truck and tools, moved out while he was training recruits at Paris Island. Robert Chen, ex-wife, forged his name on a house refinance, took $80,000. The pattern was clear. Betrayal during service, theft, people who waited until you were gone to take what wasn't theirs. Franklin found himself talking, told them about Linda, Derek, the car, the money. All of it spilled out in Ray's kitchen earlier had been practice. This was confession. The men nodded. No judgment. They understood. Cal spoke last. Lost my farm in '84. 200 acres my granddaddy cleared with a mule and a plow. Business partner cooked the books, forged papers, tried to steal it all. He paused. Took me 3 years, but I got it back. 3 years, Franklin said. I don't know if I have 3 years in me. Cal's eyes were steady. You got your whole life. 3 years ain't nothing compared to dying knowing you rolled over. He leaned forward. Silence isn't surrender, son. Sometimes the quietest men win the loudest victories. You document everything. You stay patient. You let them dig their own hole. And when the time comes, you don't gloat. You just stand there, clean name intact, while they explain themselves to a judge. Franklin felt something shift in his chest. Not hope exactly, but something less heavy than despair. Think about it, Cal said. You survive ordnance and operations. You'll survive this. On the drive home, Ray asked, you feel any better? I don't know, but I ain't ready to quit yet. They pulled into Ray's driveway. Headlights swept across an unfamiliar car parked on the street. Beat-up Honda Civic, Atlanta plates. Who's that? Franklin asked. A figure stood on Ray's porch. Backlit by the porch light, features unclear, then she stepped forward into the light. Amy, his daughter, arms crossed against the cold. She'd been waiting. Franklin's heart stumbled. He hadn't seen her in 6 years, not since that fight about her divorce, when he'd tried to give advice and she'd told him to stay out of her life. He got out of the truck, slowly. Hey, Dad. Amy, his voice came out rough. What are you doing here? Melissa called me, told me about Linda. She shifted her weight. I drove up. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did. 6 years of distance sat between them like a wall. Ray went inside, gave them space. I came to tell you I told you so, Amy said. About marriage being pointless. Franklin nodded. He could take it. He deserved it. But Amy's face changed. Her voice dropped. But then Melissa told me what Linda actually did. The car, the money, the forged signatures. She took a step closer. Dad, that's not just divorce. That's federal crime. Her tone had shifted. Not attacking, protecting. I'm a paralegal now. Work for a divorce attorney in Atlanta. I know what this looks like. She was looking at him different, really seeing him, the weight he'd lost, the worn edges, the defeat in his shoulders. Linda did this, all of it, while you were deployed. Franklin just nodded. Where are you staying? Ray's spare room. Jesus, Dad. Silence stretched between them. Cold air. Visible breath. Then Amy stepped forward and hugged him. First time in 6 years. Franklin's arms came up, held his daughter. She was crying. Or maybe he was. Hard to tell in the cold. Okay, Amy said, pulling back. Here's what we're gonna do. Ray's kitchen table became a war room. Amy had her laptop open, yellow legal pads spread out, phone charging on the counter. She worked like she'd been preparing for this her whole life. Maybe she had been. 3 years as a paralegal taught you to organize chaos. Okay, she said, fingers flying across the keyboard. Walk me through everything. Start from when you came home. Franklin told it again. Derek on the couch, Linda's coldness, the car, the bank, the VA fraud, all of it. Amy took notes. Didn't interrupt. When he finished, she sat back. Federal benefit fraud, bank forgery, systematic theft during deployment. She looked at him. Dad, any public defender would tell Linda to plead out. If she fights this, she's looking at prison time. I don't want to send her to prison. You won't. She'll send herself there if she's stupid enough to fight. Amy pulled out her phone. I'm calling my boss. Sarah Chen. She handles high-asset divorces. She's gonna want this case. Amy, I can't afford. She'll take it pro bono when she hears the VA fraud angle. Trust me. Amy was already dialing. Sarah's got 3 brothers in the military. This kind of thing pisses her off. The call connected. Amy put it on speaker. Sarah Chen. Sarah, it's Amy. I need a favor. Big one. What's up? Amy laid it out. Clean, professional, every detail hitting like a hammer. Franklin listened to his life reduced to legal facts. Somehow that made it easier to bear. When Amy finished, there was silence on the line. Then, she forged VA documents? Federal benefits? Yes. While he was deployed? 9 months in Guam. More silence. Then Sarah's voice came back hard. I'm in. Pro bono. Email me everything you've got. I want to see Ray's documentation. Bank statements, the VA fraud paperwork, all of it. I'll send it tonight. Good. Tell your dad we're going to bury her. Sarah paused. Sorry. Tell your dad we're going to get him justice. Legal, clean, and permanent. The call ended. Amy looked at Franklin. See? We've got a team now. Ray brought fresh coffee, set it down without a word. Franklin wrapped his hands around the mug. First time in weeks, something felt warm. They worked until midnight, Amy creating folders, organizing evidence into timelines. Ray's notebook became Exhibit A, photos dated and labeled, bank statements cross-referenced with VA routing forms. The pattern was clear. Linda had planned this before Franklin even deployed, maybe months before. Look at this, Amy said, pointing to a bank withdrawal. July 15th, $5,000. You deployed July 7th. 8 days, Franklin said. She was moving money before you even left. Amy's jaw tightened. This wasn't impulse. This was premeditated. Ray leaned over the table. Derek's truck first showed up August 3rd. I got the photo. Amy added it to the timeline. So she drained accounts for a month, then brought him in, probably met him before that. Franklin stared at the timeline. His marriage reduced to dates and dollar amounts. There's something else, Amy said quietly. I need to ask you about Grandma and Grandpa's estate. Franklin looked up. Why? Linda might go after it in the divorce. Community property. If there's any inheritance, she could claim half. She can't. Why not? It's in a trust. For you. Amy stopped typing. What? Franklin explained. When his parents died 8 years ago, they'd left a small estate. $85,000. He'd put it in trust for Amy. She'd been 26 then, freshly divorced, not speaking to him. The trust paid out when Amy turned 35, 6 months from now. You did that? Amy's voice cracked. When we weren't even talking? You're my daughter. Your grandmother wanted you taken care of. I thought... Amy's eyes were wet. I thought you wrote me off when I divorced Jeff. I thought you were done with me. I was hurt, Franklin said, but I never stopped being your dad. Amy put her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Franklin reached across the table, put his hand on her arm. It's okay. I'm sorry, she said through her fingers, for everything, for cutting you out, for all those years. You were hurting, I understood. Amy looked up, tears on her face, but she was smiling too. Linda's not getting a dime of that money. I know. That's why I did it. Ray cleared his throat. I'm going to leave you two alone. Get some sleep. He squeezed Franklin's shoulder as he passed. Good to have family back, ain't it? After Ray left, Amy and Franklin sat in the quiet kitchen, clock ticking on the wall, coffee getting cold. I wasted 6 years, Amy said. We both did. I'm here now, and I'm not leaving until this is done. Franklin nodded. Couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. Get some sleep, Dad. Tomorrow we start fighting back. The next morning, Ray knocked on Franklin's door early. You got mail, forwarded here. Legal envelope. Return address. Linda's attorney. Amy was already at the kitchen table, coffee in hand. She looked up when Franklin came in. What is it? Franklin opened the envelope, read. Had to read it twice to believe it. She's demanding spousal support, $2,500 a month, and half my military pension, for life. Amy's coffee mug hit the table hard. She's got some nerve. She's scared, Franklin said quietly, trying to grab what she can before it all falls apart. Let her try. Amy pulled out her phone. I'm texting Sarah. This just made her case easier. Franklin sat down, stared at the demand letter. $2,500 a month, half his pension, after stealing $90,000. You know what this means? Amy said, looking up from her phone. She knows she's in trouble. She's desperate. Sarah can use this. Ray came in from the porch, saw their faces. What happened? Amy showed him the letter. Ray shook his head. Son of a... He caught himself. Sorry, but that woman's got brass. Or fear, Franklin said. Same thing, maybe. Amy's phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Perfect. Let her demand everything. Makes our counterfiling even stronger. Federal investigators want to interview you next week. They're building a case. It's happening, Amy said. The federal investigation. They're going after her. Franklin felt something in his chest. Not quite hope, not quite vindication. Something in between. Dad, Amy said carefully, I need to ask, if Linda goes to prison, can you live with that? He thought about it, really thought. I don't want revenge, he said finally. I want what's mine, and I want her to stop. Good answer, Amy said. Because Sarah says the threat of prison will make Linda settle. She'll give you everything to avoid federal charges. What if she doesn't scare? Then she's dumber than I think, and federal prosecutors don't lose these cases. That weekend, Amy brought Carter, Franklin's grandson, 6 years old. Last time Franklin saw him, Carter was 2. Now he was tall, all elbows and energy. Carter hid behind Amy's legs when they first came in. Don't be shy, Amy said. That's Grandpa. Ray saved the moment, came out of the kitchen with cookies. You like chocolate chip? Carter nodded. Well, come on then. I got fresh ones. 10 minutes later, Carter was sitting at the table, cookies and milk, swinging his legs. Are you really in the Navy? Carter asked Franklin. I was. I'm retired now. Did you see the ocean? Franklin pulled out his phone, showed Carter pictures, ships, Guam, the endless Pacific. Carter climbed onto Franklin's lap without thinking about it, just a kid looking at pictures. Amy watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes. This should have happened years ago. Birthdays, Christmases, regular weekends, 6 years stolen by stubbornness and hurt feelings. Mom says Grandma Linda was mean to you, Carter said suddenly. Silence in the kitchen. Franklin looked at Amy. She shrugged. He asked. I didn't lie. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, Franklin said carefully. But it'll be okay. Carter looked up at him with serious eyes. Are you sad? Sometimes, but I'm happy right now. Carter hugged him, small arms around Franklin's neck, trusting and simple. Franklin couldn't speak, just held his grandson and felt something in his chest crack open. Not breaking, healing. After a while, Amy took Carter outside to play in Ray's yard. Franklin watched through the window, Carter running, Amy chasing, laughing. Ray came and stood beside him. That's what you're fighting for. Not the house, not the money. That right there. I know. Then don't quit. Because boys need their grandfathers. Franklin's phone rang. Janet Morales, the VA caseworker. He answered, Mr. Mercer, federal investigators want to interview you next week. Wednesday at 2. Can you make it? Yes, ma'am. Good. They're building a case against Linda. Benefit fraud, forgery. It's serious. They'll need your full cooperation. They'll have it. Janet paused. Franklin, this is going to get harder before it gets better. You ready for that? Through the window, Carter was laughing. Amy was pushing him on Ray's old tire swing. Yeah, Franklin said. I'm ready. He hung up. Ray looked at him. Federal interview? Wednesday. It's happening then. Yeah, it's happening. Outside, Carter called for Franklin to come push him. Franklin went. Left the legal papers and the hard conversations behind for a few minutes. Just a grandfather pushing his grandson on a swing. The January sun was weak, but it was there. Cold, but there. Sarah Chin called on a Tuesday morning. Amy put her on speaker. Got the PI report back on Derek Paulson. You're going to want to hear this. Amy had her laptop open, taking notes. Franklin sat across from her at Ray's kitchen table. Sarah's voice came through clear. Derek Paulson, 35, originally from Tennessee, and here's the pattern. 3 previous relationships in the last 8 years. Same playbook every time. What playbook? Amy asked. Targets, women 50 to 65 with husbands who travel for work or military deployment. Romance, move in fast, get access to finances, drain accounts, disappear when caught. Franklin felt his jaw tighten. There's more, Sarah continued. Failed businesses across 3 states. Landscaping company in Memphis. Never licensed, no clients, folded after 6 months. Same thing in Little Rock. Same thing in Chattanooga. He's got debts everywhere. Unpaid loans, bounced checks. There's even a restraining order from an ex in Memphis. What about the money Linda gave him? Amy asked. $45,000, near as I can trace. No business assets, no equipment, no nothing. He spent it or moved it. Either way, it's gone. Franklin stared at the table. Linda had been conned how just like she'd conned him. The irony tasted bitter. Does this help us? Amy asked. It helps in 2 ways, Sarah said. 1, it shows Linda was manipulated. Doesn't excuse her crimes, but it might explain them. Court could show some mercy. 2, It shows Derek's pattern. If we need him to testify, we've got leverage. He won't want his history examined too close. He's still at the house, Franklin said. His truck's there most days. Probably planning his exit, Sarah said. These guys don't stick around when legal trouble starts. Watch. When things heat up, he'll ghost her. After the call ended, Amy looked at Franklin. So Linda's a victim too, sort of. She's a criminal who got victimized, Franklin said. Don't make her less responsible. I'm not. But it's sad. She destroyed her marriage for a con man. Franklin thought about that. 22 years traded for Derek's empty promises. Tragic. Still criminal. Both things true at once. That evening, Franklin's phone rang. Unknown number, Ohio area code. Mr. Mercer, this is Karen Wexler. Linda's sister. Franklin remembered her vaguely. Met her at the wedding 22 years ago. Hadn't spoken since. What can I do for you? Franklin kept his voice neutral. I'm calling to apologize. Karen's voice was tight. And to tell you I'll testify if you need me to. Franklin sat up straighter. Testify to what? That Linda's always been like this, since we were kids. Took money from our parents. Lied, manipulated people to get what she wanted. Karen paused. I've been covering for her my whole life. Making excuses. I'm done. Why now? Because you served your country and came home to this. And because I'm tired of watching her hurt people and get away with it. Franklin heard real pain in her voice. Family guilt. The weight of enabling someone you loved. When she told me she was leaving you for a younger man, I said, Linda, you're destroying a good man. She laughed. Said you'd be fine. Karen's voice broke. I'm sorry. I should have warned you. Should have done something. You couldn't have stopped her. Maybe not, but I could have tried. Karen took a breath. Our mother called me last week, told me about the federal investigation. I wanted you to know, I'll help however I can. Character testimony, pattern of behavior, whatever you need. I appreciate that. One more thing, Karen said. Linda called me yesterday, asked to borrow $15,000, said she needed a good lawyer. What did you say? I said no. Then I called you. After they hung up, Franklin sat with the phone in his hand. Even Linda's own sister was done with her. Ray came in from the porch. Everything okay? Linda's running out of money and family and options. Me and cornered animals are dangerous. Or they just give up. Wednesday afternoon, Franklin sat in a federal building conference room. 2 agents across from him, Morrison and Lee, recording equipment on the table, official and cold. Amy sat beside him. Moral support. Agent Morrison was maybe 45. No nonsense. Mercer, we appreciate you coming in. This interview is being recorded. Do you consent to that? Yes, ma'am. Let's start from the beginning. When did you deploy? Franklin walked them through it. July 7th departure. 9 months in Guam. Construction project. Came home November 5th. They showed him documents. The forged signatures side by side with his real ones. Did you authorize these address changes? Agent Morrison asked. No, ma'am. Did you know your VA benefits were being rerouted? Not until I came home. Did Mrs. Mercer have access to documents with your signature? We were married 22 years. She had access to everything. Agent Lee leaned forward. Did she ever forge your signature before, that you know of? Franklin thought about it. Not that I caught, but I trusted her. I wasn't looking. The questions went on for 90 minutes, methodical, thorough, building a case brick by brick. At the end, Agent Morrison closed her folder. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. We'll need to interview Mrs. Mercer next. We'll be in touch. What happens then? Amy asked. Depends on her cooperation. If she admits the fraud and returns the funds, possibly a plea deal. If she denies it, we prosecute. How long does this take? Franklin asked. Months, typically. But your case is strong. Very clear paper trail. Outside in the parking lot, Franklin felt wrung out. Reliving it all officially, for the record, made it real in a different way. Amy's phone rang. She answered, listened, eyes widening. Dad, pull over. Franklin pulled into a gas station. What? That was Sarah. Linda's attorney just called her. He wants an emergency meeting. Tomorrow. He said Linda needs to discuss options urgently. Franklin's heart kicked. What kind of options? Settlement, probably. Amy was already texting Sarah back. Dad, they're scared. The federal investigation has them scared. Franklin sat in the truck, engine idling, and felt the shift. For weeks, he'd been on defense. Reacting, surviving. Now Linda was reacting to him. Sarah says we should meet them, Amy said, reading her phone. See what they're offering. She thinks Linda's lawyer knows she's going to prison if this goes to trial. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. 2 o'clock, county courthouse. Amy looked at him. You ready for this? Franklin thought about Linda's face that first night. Cold, no apology. Derek's feet on his coffee table. Thought about his father's car, sold like scrap. Thought about 22 years reduced to forged signatures and empty accounts. Yeah, he said. I'm ready. That night, he couldn't sleep. Lay in Patricia's quilts, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow he'd face Linda across a table. Official, legal, final. He thought about what he wanted. Not revenge, just his life back, his dignity, his name clean. Cal Turner's words echoed. Silence isn't surrender. Let them dig their own hole. Linda had dug deep. Now she was standing in it, looking up, finally understanding what she'd done. Franklin closed his eyes. Tomorrow, Ray's kitchen that evening. Franklin, Amy, Sarah on video call, and Cal Turner, who'd driven over when he heard. Let's talk strategy, Sarah said from the laptop screen. Linda's lawyer knows she's facing federal prison. He wants to negotiate a settlement to avoid criminal prosecution. What are our terms? Amy asked. Sarah laid it out, clean and simple. Return all VA benefits. That's $22,400. Return half the savings, $23,500. Sign the house over to Franklin in the divorce. No spousal support, no pension claims. In exchange, Franklin doesn't press additional civil fraud charges. The federal investigation continues no matter what, Amy added. That's not ours to stop. Right, Sarah said. But Franklin's cooperation affects how hard they prosecute. If he's forgiving, asks for leniency, that carries weight. Cal leaned back in his chair. What do you want, Franklin? Revenge or your life back? Franklin stared at his coffee. Gone cold again. My life back. I don't want her in prison. I just want what's mine. She stole $90,000, Amy said. Tried to erase you. You'd be justified. I know what she did. Franklin's voice was quiet but firm. And sending her to prison won't give me back the car. Won't give me back 22 years. I want the house. I want as much money as I can get back. Then I want to walk away clean. Sarah nodded on the screen. That's practical. And it's powerful. You offering mercy from a position of strength. That's dignity. What if she won't settle? Ray asked. Then she's dumber than I think, Sarah said. Federal prosecutors don't lose benefit fraud cases. Not with this kind of evidence. After the call ended, Cal put his hand on Franklin's shoulder. You're doing the right thing. Mercy ain't weakness, it's strength under control. I hope so. Get some sleep, Cal said. Tomorrow, you find out if Linda's smart or stubborn. Franklin didn't sleep. Lay in the dark thinking about what he'd say, how he'd sit, whether he'd look Linda in the eye or keep his gaze on the table. At 2 a.m, he gave up. Sat on Ray's porch in the February cold. Stars clear overhead, his breath fogging. He thought about mercy, about justice, about the difference. Justice was getting what you deserved. Mercy was getting better than you deserved. Linda deserved prison. But Franklin wasn't sure he deserved to carry that weight, knowing he'd sent his wife, ex-wife, to federal prison. That would sit in his chest forever. Better to take what was his and walk away. Let her live with what she'd done. That was punishment enough. Morning came eventually. Gray sky, more cold. Amy arrived at 8 with coffee and determination. You ready? As I'll ever be. Franklin went to the spare room, opened his duffel, pulled out his navy dress uniform. Amy saw him carry it to the bathroom. Dad, you don't need to wear that. Yes, I do. He put it on carefully. The jacket still fit. Pressed and clean, save for funerals and Veterans Day ceremonies, the ribbons lined up perfect. 26 years of service on his chest. He looked at himself in the mirror, 63 years old, tired eyes. But the uniform made him stand straighter. This was who he was, before Linda, before Derek, before any of it. He was Franklin Mercer, Navy CB, E7 retired. He'd served his country with honor. That couldn't be stolen. Amy saw him come out and her eyes got wet. Oh, Dad. I need to remember who I am when I walk in there. You look good. Ray appeared with Franklin's dress shoes, polished to a shine. Figured you'd need these. Franklin took them. When did you... Last night. Couldn't sleep either. Ray smiled. Go get your life back, son. They drove to the county courthouse. Franklin, in his uniform. Amy beside him, in her best suit. Professional. A team. They passed Franklin's house on the way. Derek's truck wasn't in the driveway. Amy noticed too. That's odd. It's always there. Franklin slowed, looked closer. Linda's car was there. Alone. Maybe he's at work, Amy said. He doesn't work. They drove past on a different route, circling back. Caught a glimpse of Linda on the front porch, on her phone, pacing, agitated. Even from a distance, Franklin could read her body language. Upset, angry. She hung up, threw the phone. It hit the porch wall. What was that? Amy asked. I think Derek just left her. Now, right before she needs him? He was never going to stay, Franklin said. Guys like that don't stick around for consequences. They drove on. At the courthouse, Linda's car was in the parking lot. Franklin found a spot 3 rows over. He sat for a moment, hands on the wheel. You got this, Dad, Amy said. I know. They walked to the building. Franklin's dress shoes clicked on the pavement. His uniform drew looks. Respect. People nodded. Inside, Sarah Chen waited in the lobby. Sharp suit, leather briefcase, all business. Franklin, Amy, good. She looked Franklin up and down, took in the uniform, smiled slightly. Nice touch. It's who I am. It's perfect. Let's go. They're in conference room B. They walked down the hallway. Through the glass door, Franklin could see them. Linda sat at the table, her lawyer beside her. Robert Hutchins, 60-something, looking tired. Both of them looked defeated already. But then the door opened. Derek walked in. Sorry I'm late. Traffic. Linda looked up. Relief flooded her face. He'd come. He was here. She wasn't alone. Derek sat next to her, put his hand on her shoulder, playing the supportive boyfriend. Franklin watched through the glass. Saw it all. The performance. Sarah looked at Franklin. Ready? Franklin straightened his uniform jacket. Felt the weight of his ribbons, his service, his honor. Yeah, let's go. They entered the conference room. Glass table, leather chairs, professional, sterile. Hutchins stood. Mr. Mercer, Ms. Ross, Ms. Chen, thank you for coming. Linda wouldn't look at Franklin, stared at the table. Derek's hand still on her shoulder. Franklin sat down across from them. Amy on his right, Sarah on his left. Derek looked at Franklin's uniform. Something flickered in his eyes. Discomfort, maybe shame, hard to tell. Hutchins cleared his throat. My client would like to discuss resolution. As you know, the federal investigation has created some complications. Complications, Sarah said flatly. That's one word for federal benefit fraud. Hutchins flinched. Poor choice of words. My client acknowledges errors in judgment. Errors? Sarah leaned forward. Try felonies, Mr. Hutchins. Forgery, fraud, systematic theft from a deployed service member. Those aren't errors. Those are crimes. Linda's hands folded on the table. Knuckles white. Derek shifted in his seat, checked his phone. Hutchins tried to regroup. We'd like to propose a settlement that satisfies Mr. Mercer and avoids criminal prosecution. Sarah opened her briefcase. We're listening. Before Hutchins could speak, Derek stood up. I need some air. Linda looked up at him. Derek, just for a minute. This is intense. I'll be right back. He walked to the door, opened it. Franklin watched him go. Amy leaned close, whispered, He's not coming back. Franklin knew she was right. Hutchins waited until the door closed. Then he started talking. Numbers, terms, negotiation, but Franklin was watching Linda's face. Watching her realize Derek wasn't in the bathroom, wasn't getting air. He was gone. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Derek didn't come back. Hutchins kept talking, trying to maintain momentum. Settlement terms, payment schedules, asset division. But Linda's eyes kept going to the door. Finally, Sarah said, Mr. Hutchins, I don't think Mr. Paulson is returning. Linda stood up fast, went to the window, looked down at the parking lot. Franklin couldn't see from his angle, but he knew what she was seeing. Empty parking space. Derek's Ram truck gone. Linda's face crumpled. She caught herself, sat back down. But the damage was visible. She was alone now, truly alone. Hutchins pressed on, professional to the end. As I was saying, Mrs. Mercer is prepared to discuss repayment terms. Let me save us some time, Sarah said. She pulled out a document, slid it across the table. These are our terms, non-negotiable. Hutchins read. His face fell with every line. Return of all VA benefits, $22,400. Return of half the marital savings, $23,500. House transferred to Mr. Mercer in the divorce settlement. No spousal support, no pension claims. Divorce finalized immediately. My client doesn't have $45,000, Hutchins said. Then she gets a loan, borrows against the house equity, sells assets. I don't care how she gets it. Sarah's voice was steel. Those are the terms. And in exchange, Mr. Mercer won't pursue additional civil fraud charges. The federal investigation continues. That's not ours to control. But Mr. Mercer's cooperation with prosecutors affects sentencing recommendations. Linda finally spoke. Her voice was small. What does that mean? Sarah looked at her directly. It means if Franklin asks the federal prosecutor to show leniency, they'll listen. If he asks for the maximum, they'll listen to that too. Your future depends on how reasonable you are right now. Hutchins leaned close to Linda, whispered. Franklin couldn't hear the words, but he could read the urgency. Derek's absence hung in the room like smoke. Linda looked at the door one more time, still closed, still empty. I don't have that money, she said. Not all of it. Derek's business, she stopped, realized how it sounded. The business that doesn't exist? Amy's voice cut sharp. The one he spent $45,000 of stolen money on? That business? Linda's face flushed. He said, he lied, Amy said. He's a con artist. Did the same thing to 3 other women before you. We have the records. Linda looked at Hutchins. You didn't tell me that. No, I just found out yesterday, Hutchins admitted. Silence in the room, the kind that presses on your ears. Linda turned to Franklin, really looked at him for the first time, saw the uniform, the ribbons, the man she'd tried to erase. You'd really send me to prison? Franklin leaned forward, kept his voice steady. Ma'am, I wouldn't send you anywhere. You sent yourself there when you forged my name on federal documents. I'm just deciding whether to show mercy you never showed me. The words landed like stones in still water. Linda's lawyer spoke up, desperate now. Mrs. Mercer, I strongly advise you to accept these terms. Federal benefit fraud carries 3 to 5 years, mandatory minimum. Bank fraud adds more. If you go to trial, you'll lose. Then you get nothing and go to prison anyway. I don't have $45,000, Linda said again, quieter. The house has equity, Sarah said. You can borrow against it, then sign it over to Franklin, or you can refuse, go to trial and lose it in criminal asset forfeiture. Your choice. Linda looked at Hutchins. What do I do? Hutchins met her eyes. You sign. The documents took 30 minutes to review. Hutchins went through every page with Linda, making sure she understood. Settlement agreement, debt repayment schedule, house transfer papers, divorce decree, waiver of spousal support and pension claims. Linda's hands shook as she read. Franklin watched her, tried to feel something. Vindication, satisfaction, relief. Mostly he just felt tired. Sarah explained each document. Professional, clinical. This is what you're signing. This is what it means. Do you understand? Linda nodded, her voice barely audible. Yes. The house equity loan will take 2 weeks to process, Hutchins said. Then full payment to Mr. Mercer within 30 days of loan approval. Acceptable, Sarah said. And Mrs. Mercer moves out of the house immediately. Today. Linda looked up. Today? Today, Franklin said. First words he'd spoken directly to her since the opening. I want my house back. She held his gaze for a moment, then looked away. Hutchins slid the first document across. Sign here, and here. Initial here. Linda picked up the pen. It shook in her hand. She signed. One document, then another, then another. Her signature shaky, nothing like the confident forgeries on the bank forms. Those had been practiced, deliberate. These were defeat. The final document was the divorce decree. Linda paused on this one, stared at it. 22 years of marriage, ended with a signature. She looked at Franklin one last time. I'm sorry, for what it's worth. Franklin didn't look away, didn't soften. It's worth what it's worth. Not forgiveness, not cruelty, just acknowledgement, Linda signed. Franklin signed below her. Hutchins and Sarah witnessed. Done. Sarah gathered the documents. We'll file these tomorrow. Divorce finalized in 30 days. Hutchins stood. And the federal investigation? Mrs. Mercer will need to cooperate fully with the U.S. Attorney's office? Sarah said. Return the benefits immediately. Show remorse. Pray for leniency. That's between her and federal prosecutors, Sarah said. Not our concern. Linda and Hutchins left first. She didn't look back. Just walked out the door, shoulders slumped, alone. The door closed behind them. Franklin, Amy, and Sarah sat in silence. How do you feel? Sarah asked. Tired. Franklin's voice was flat. Empty, but done. Amy touched his arm. The house is yours. She's out. Derek's gone. You won, Dad. Doesn't feel like winning. Franklin stood slowly. His knees ached. Feels like surviving. Sarah started packing her briefcase. That's what it is, Franklin. And surviving is enough. You stood firm, got justice, kept your dignity. That's a win in my book. They left the courthouse together. Outside, February wind cut cold. Amy looked at Franklin. Want to drive by the house? It's yours now. Franklin shook his head. Not yet. I'm not ready. They drove back to Ray's in silence. Franklin's phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. He opened it. A photo, Derek's Ram truck. For sale sign in the window. Tennessee plates. $12,000 or best offer. Someone had sent it to Franklin, maybe the PI. Maybe someone else who knew. Derek had fled the state. Selling everything, running. Franklin deleted the photo. What was that? Amy asked. Derek skipped town, selling his truck in Tennessee. Good riddance. Franklin looked out the window, small town rolling past. His town. He'd lived here 40 years. Yeah, he said quietly. Let him run. I got what I needed. At Ray's house, the old man was on the porch, saw Franklin's face, knew. How'd it go? She signed everything. Derek left her. She's moving out today. Ray nodded. Come on inside. I made coffee. Franklin followed him in, sat at the familiar kitchen table. You did good, son, Ray said. Franklin didn't feel good, didn't feel bad, just felt finished. 22 years, ended in a courthouse conference room with signatures and legal language, but it was over, finally over. 3 weeks after the settlement, Franklin moved back into his house. Linda had taken her things and left, moved to Karen's place in Ohio. The house stood empty except for Franklin's original furniture. Ray helped him carry boxes from the spare room. Amy had driven up the day before and spent 6 hours cleaning. New sheets, new towels, scrubbed every surface until Derek's cologne smell was gone, replaced with pine sol and fresh air. Franklin stood in his doorway with the key in his hand. His house. Always had been, legally. But it felt different now. Ray waited behind him. It's your house, son. Always was. And Franklin stepped inside. Echoes. Empty spaces where Linda's decorating had been. His father's photo was back on the mantel, right side up. Amy had done that. The smell was different. Cleaner. But not quite home yet. Amy came out of the kitchen, drying her hands. I got rid of anything that was theirs. Fresh start. Franklin's tools were back in the garage. His medals on the shelf in his den. His clothes in his closet. He walked through each room, touching walls, checking windows, reclaiming space. That night, he slept in his own bed, for the first time in 4 months. The house creaked with familiar sounds, but it was quiet, just him. He didn't sleep much, but he was home. March came in like a promise. The gray started breaking. Sun appeared more often. The cold lost its edge. Amy visited most weekends, bringing Carter. They'd eat breakfast at Franklin's table, work on small projects around the house, painting the spare room, fixing the porch railing. Normal things. Ray still brought coffee some mornings. They'd sit on Franklin's porch, his porch now, and not say much. Didn't need to. Linda was in Ohio, working retail, from what Karen said, keeping her head down. The federal investigation was ongoing, but she'd cooperated, returned the VA money. The prosecutor was considering a plea deal, probation instead of prison. Franklin had written a letter to the U.S. attorney. Short, simple, he didn't want revenge. Justice had been served. If they wanted to show mercy, he wouldn't object. Derek was gone. Heard he'd gotten arrested in Tennessee for writing bad checks. That was someone else's problem now. Franklin didn't think about them much anymore. Some days, he'd catch himself starting to, then he'd find something else to do. Fix a cabinet, call Amy, go see Ray. The house was his. The money would never all come back, but some of it had. Enough. His name was clean. That was enough. On the first warm Saturday in March, Cal Turner showed up with a newspaper. Franklin was on the porch with coffee. Real spring warmth in the air for the first time. Got something for you, Cal said. He'd circled an ad in the classified section. Old school. Estate sale. 2 counties west. Franklin read it. 1967 Chevrolet Impala. Ermine white. Needs work. $8,500 OBO. On the same color as his father's car. Franklin's chest tightened. Cal, I can't. Just go look at it. Widow selling her husband's car. Called her this morning. Still available. Cal sat down. Thought of you. Not saying you gotta buy it. Just thought you should see it. Franklin stared at the ad. His father's voice in his memory. Keep it running, son. Amy's car pulled into the driveway. She got out with Carter. She saw the newspaper in Franklin's hand. What's that? Cal explained. Amy read the ad over Franklin's shoulder. Dad, let's go look at it today. I can't afford $8,000 right now. The settlement money's going to repairs, legal fees. My trust fund pays out next month, Amy said. $85,000. I'll buy it. We'll restore it together. You teach me what Grandpa taught you. Amy, that's your money. And I want to spend some of it on this. On us. She looked at him. Please. Franklin looked at the ad again. The same model, the same color, not his father's car. Could never be that car, but maybe that was the point. Not replacing what was lost. Carrying forward what was taught. Okay, Franklin said. Let's go see it. 2 hours later, they pulled up to a suburban house. Estate sale signs on the lawn. Cars parked everywhere. There it was, under an oak tree. 1967 Chevrolet Impala, ermine white. Franklin got out of the truck slowly, walked toward it like approaching something sacred. The paint was faded, some rust on the panels, interior worn. Engine would need a full rebuild, but it was whole, solid, waiting. He ran his hand over the hood, cold metal, smooth under his palm. An older woman approached. Late 70s, kind face. You interested in Henry's car? Yes, ma'am. My father had one just like this. We restored it together. She smiled. Then you know what kind of love goes into these. Henry worked on this for 15 years, right up until... She paused. He died last year, heart attack, 78 years old. I'm sorry for your loss. He'd want it to go to someone who'd treat it right, someone who understands. She looked at Franklin's face, saw something there. You've had your own losses, haven't you? Yes, ma'am. My father died of cancer. The car we built together was stolen from me recently. This feels like... He couldn't finish. Like something coming full circle, she said gently. Carter ran up, eyes wide. Grandpa, is this the car? Amy followed. Mrs. Cho, Evelyn Cho. Mrs. Cho, we'd like to buy it, Amy said. If it's still available? It is. Asking $8,500, but for you. Mrs. Cho looked at Franklin, at the way he touched the car. $7,500? I can see you'll love it. Amy pulled out her checkbook. We'll take it. While Amy handled the paperwork, Franklin opened the hood with Carter, showed him the engine, seized up. Lots of work needed. Can we fix it? Carter asked. Yeah, buddy. It'll take time. But yeah. Mrs. Cho signed the title over. Amy arranged for a tow truck to bring it to Franklin's garage. Carter climbed into the driver's seat, hands on the wheel. It's really ours? Franklin smiled. First real smile in months. It's really ours. Amy took a photo. Franklin and Carter in front of the Chevy. March sun warm on their faces. Mrs. Cho watched them. You bring that boy back when you get it running. Henry would have loved to see that. We will, ma'am. They drove home in convoy, Amy's car following Franklin's truck. In the rearview mirror, Franklin could see them, his daughter, his grandson, family. The Chevy would arrive next week, then they'd start. Piece by piece, together. Carter's voice from the back seat. When do we start working on it, Grandpa? Soon as it gets there. I'll teach you everything my dad taught me. And me too, Amy said. I want to learn. Franklin looked at the road ahead. March sun breaking through winter clouds. First real warmth in 4 months. Yeah, he said, all of us. We'll do it together. 2 weeks later, Franklin sat on his porch in the early morning, April now, coffee in his hand, steam rising in the cool air. The Chevy was in his garage, hood up. Carter and Amy were coming this weekend to start the real work. Engine rebuild, body restoration. A year's worth of Saturdays probably, maybe more. He didn't mind. Some things were worth taking time. Ray walked over from next door, brought his own coffee, sat without asking. That was friendship. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the morning, birds returning after winter, the sound of life coming back. You doing okay? Ray asked eventually. Franklin thought about it, really thought. Yeah, I am. Not happy exactly. Not the way he'd been before, but solid, grounded, present. Linda was in Ohio, working, living small. The federal plea deal had gone through. 2 years probation, community service, no prison. Franklin had asked for mercy and they'd given it. Derek was somebody else's problem, probably already running his next con. Franklin didn't think about them much anymore. What he thought about was this, his daughter calling every few days, his grandson asking questions about carburetors and timing chains. Ray's morning coffee visits, Cal stopping by with advice on the restoration. Found family, chosen family, the people who showed up when it mattered. Cal was right, Franklin said. Silence isn't surrender. What's that? Something he told me at VFW, when I was ready to quit. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes you win by standing still, letting the truth surface on its own. Ray nodded. You stood still. You let her dig her own hole. Now you're still standing and she ain't. I didn't want it to be like that. I know, but you can't control what people do, just what you do. Through the garage window, Franklin could see the Chevy, waiting, patient. His father's voice in memory. Let the tool do the work, son. Don't force it. Same with life, maybe. Don't force it. Do the work. Be patient. Stand firm. Amy's car pulled into the driveway early. She and Carter getting a jump on the weekend. Carter ran up the porch steps. Grandpa, Mom says we can start the engine work today. Franklin set his coffee down, stood, felt the April sun warm on his face. First real warmth after a long, cold winter. Well then, he said, let's get to it. He walked to the garage with Carter's small hand in his. Amy followed. Ray came too, to watch. The garage door was already open, sunlight streaming in, the Chevy waiting under its hood. Tools laid out on the workbench, his father's tools. The ones Linda had packed away, The ones that had come back, some things you lose. Some things come back different. Some things get built from scratch. All of it mattered. Franklin picked up his father's favorite wrench, felt the weight of it, the history. "Okay, buddy," he said to Carter. "First lesson, always respect your tools. And always respect the people who taught you." Carter nodded, serious. Amy stood in the doorway with her phone, taking pictures, capturing this, the start of something. 3 generations, 1 car, slowly bringing something back to life. Franklin bent over the engine, Carter beside him, spring light filling the garage. "Hand me that socket wrench," Franklin said. The 3/4 inch. Carter found it, passed it over, careful, respectful. Outside, a neighbor's radio played. Someone mowing their lawn. Normal Saturday sounds. Franklin's hands moved over the engine. Sure, practiced, teaching. This was enough. This was more than enough. Life wasn't perfect. Wasn't what he'd planned. But it was his. Clean, honest. Moving forward, one piece at a time. He looked at Amy, at Carter, at Ray, watching from the driveway with his coffee. At the work ahead, the restoration, the time it would take. And Franklin Mercer smiled. "Let's bring it home," he said.